Breaking news, an attack at Ohio State University leaves 9 hospitalized. Good evening, I'm Aaron Scheinblum.
And I'm Sarah Barth. The attack started this morning just before 10 a.m. as students were notified over the emergency system that there was an apparent active shooter on campus. The message saying, "Run, hide, fight." The suspect has now been identified as 18-year-old OSU freshman Abdul Artan, a legal Somali refugee. Artan was shot dead after allegedly plowing his car into pedestrians before beginning to stab multiple people with a knife. Officials said the attack was clearly deliberate and planned, although the motive remains unknown. The lockdown was lifted around 11:30 a.m., but classes were canceled for the rest of the day. The university has over 65,000 students, many of whom were nearby when the alert went out.
It's a lot harder when it's at your own school. It's really heartbreaking and sad and frustrating, you know.
Officials are still investigating the motive behind the attack. Classes will resume tomorrow. The recount begins. That's our top story in news around the world. Wisconsin begins its recount today as the federal deadline of December 13th looms just over 2 weeks away. But how those votes will be recounted is still unknown. Election officials today promising a speedy recount rejected Jill Stein's request for the new tally to be done by hand. Clinton's former opponent, Senator Bernie Sanders, called the recount efforts not a big deal.
It's a legal right. It's not a big deal. I don't think anybody, Secretary Clinton or anybody else, thinks there's going to be profound changes. We will see what happens.
Trump responded to the recount efforts by claiming voter fraud against him in Democratic-won states of Virginia, New Hampshire, and California in a tweet last night. The Trump transition team continues its cabinet discussions as Trump holds back-to-back meetings today in New York. Most notable of the meetings is former General David Petraeus, who is reported to have been pulled in the mix for Secretary of State contenders. Trump's team continues to remain divided over his consideration of Mitt Romney for the position, the debate going public over the weekend as advisor Kellyanne Conway publicly advocated against appointing Romney.
Out of his way to hurt Donald Trump. I don't think a cost of admission for party unity has to be the Secretary of State position.
Trump will meet with Romney again tomorrow. Cuba begins 9 days of mourning today to honor Fidel Castro's death over the weekend. As many in Havana mourn, Cuban Americans and politicians have mixed responses to the former dictator's passing. President-elect Donald Trump threatening to roll back Barack Obama's efforts to repair U.S.-Cuba relations. Trump tweeted, quote, "If Cuba is unwilling to make a better deal for the Cuban people, the Cuban American people, and the U.S. as a whole, I will terminate the deal." Obama's diplomatic efforts with Cuba was expected to be one of his long-lasting legacies and today the first commercial flight from the U.S. to Havana landed around 8:30 this morning. Dylan Roof today was granted permission to represent himself in court for his alleged shooting of 9 black churchgoers in Charleston, North Carolina last year. Roof went against the advice of his attorneys, and the judge called the decision unwise. The 22-year-old faces a possible death sentence if found guilty. And that's what's happening across the nation and around the world.